So this is an update on where we are at with the integration process. I'm going to try and run through it quickly so I can address any questions you may have at the end of this. So just to remind everybody, we started this in March, actually March the 27th of last year, when the Central East Lynn passed the motions instructing us and the Scarborough Hospital to start planning around integration. We developed a planning framework in the period between April and June, and that was approved by the Lynn board in mid to late June. Between July and October, we spent a considerable amount of time talking to the communities that we serve around what are the key issues that we see around integration and why we should be integrating. We held two telephone town halls where we contacted probably somewhere in the region of 16,000 people in the two communities. We had a number of community roundtables where we invited community leaders to come and provide feedback on what we were thinking. And we've had a number of consultations with staff, physicians and volunteers. And I think you're all aware of the website leadingforpatients.ca. So in November the 12th, the two hospital boards approved in principle to investigate and conduct final due diligence with a view to merging the two organizations. And that was subsequently approved or supported by the Lynn board, and they agreed to fund us for $3.8 million worth of costs associated with that due diligence process. I don't know whether it's actually going to get up to that amount, but we've at least got the opportunity to recover those costs. So in late December, early January, we started the detailed due diligence process. We engaged advisors to help us with this. So each hospital corporation has independent legal counsel and independent financial advisors advising us around the due diligence process. We've also been working with the Central East Lynn to look at enablers for the merger of the two corporations, and we've identified three key enablers which were actually articulated within the board motions on November the 12th. And the three key ones are a clear signal from government that they will fund detailed capital planning for the two communities. Because for Scarborough we have three facilities that are basically beyond their useful life. And in West Durham we have a facility here that, while we've done some substantial renovations and expansions, the inpatient units are inadequate by current standards, and we do not have the physical capacity to serve the needs of West Durham patients even today, let alone deal with the growth that we know is going to occur with the development of Seaton and the airport lands. So we need physical capacity in Ajax Pickering to meet that growth. So we've issued formal documentation to government to start that planning process, and we are looking for approvals from government around that. We're also seeking financial support around merging the two payrolls, because if we bring the payrolls together, there will be some leveling that will take place. And the third thing is we're looking for some relief on the funding formula to deal with what will be inevitable restructuring costs over the next 3 years. And the way the funding formulas work, restructuring costs actually penalize you in terms of being able to get future revenues. So we're looking for some adjustment for that. The financial and legal due diligence will be complete, pretty well complete by tomorrow, and we will be reviewing those reports with the boards, the hospital boards, Our hospital board will be meeting on the 19th. It's an in-camera meeting because these are legally privileged documents at this point. And the Scarborough Hospital board is meeting on the 24th, I believe, to consider the report. So we have a report on them, and they have a report on us, which have been produced independently by independent advisors. We are continuing with the ongoing stakeholder engagement. So we will be having more telephone town halls. They've been scheduled for February the 26th, 27th, and March the 5th. And we're hoping to get substantial turnout again on those telephone town halls. The critical meetings in terms of the final approval of this will be around March the 3rd or March the 4th. We're just trying to lock down the dates, the board dates. But at that point, we will be taking a final recommendation to both of the hospital boards. It may not be the same day, maybe one after the other, around the merger. That will then go to a meeting of the members of each corporation. So we will be seeking member approval. And once we have member approval, we will be submitting the required documentation to the Central East Lynn for consideration at their March 26th board meeting. Once I'm assuming that all the approvals are in place, then the documentation would go to the minister, and the minister would have up to 30 days to approve the merger. So we could legally be merged if everything goes according to plan as early as May the 1st. It could slip a little bit, but that's sort of the time period we're looking at into the early summer if we make all the decisions that we are anticipating. The final decision rests with the minister. So the minister, we can do all this work and we get it onto her desk, and she may choose not to approve it. We don't believe that's the case. We believe we have a groundswell of support from our physicians who are very motivated by this. They believe that there are real patient and clinical advantages to this integration. So we've got a lot of support there, and basically the feedback we're getting from the communities supports that position as well. While there is some trepidation, there's general groundswell of support. Just to remind, if we get to this point, we will be a powerhouse in terms of healthcare in the province. We will be the 7th largest hospital in the province, taking into account all of the teaching hospitals. We will have the largest surgical program in the province. We will have the largest emergency services program in the province, not second. We will rank second in acute care separations, etc., etc., etc. This will be a very significant, powerful organization within healthcare in the province of Ontario. So, that's the update. I will try to address questions. Rick.
What, in your opinion, would be the two most significant showstoppers coming out of any due diligence work?
I think if we found that there were very significant liabilities that were either hospital was unaware of, etc., I think those could have a significant impact. The reality is we have got drafts of the financial due diligence reports now, and there is nothing in those drafts that would draw us to conclude that we should not be proceeding. So there are no showstoppers that have been identified as yet in the financial report. Now, it's not complete. It will be complete tomorrow, but I would be shocked if something came up at the last minute. I have not seen the legal due diligence, and to give you an example of what could be an issue there, if there are significant uninsured litigation, then that potentially could be a showstopper. But again, nobody's raised any red flags on either side that is the case. So I would not anticipate that there will be significant barriers being thrown up by the due diligence process.
Thank you.
Any questions at RVC? Carl?
We had a meeting recently, just about 2 hours ago. Staff had some questions that if the Minister of Health does approve the merger and there is an election, can that be reversed?
The answer to that is no. Once the Minister has approved, then we simply have to file the appropriate legal documents, and we can do that sort of literally the next day from the Minister's approval. And at that point, the two hospital corporations are merged. To unmerge them, you would have to go through another multi-million-dollar process in the years to come. But we do not see that as even a remote likelihood. So if we get to the point where the Minister's approved it, it's a done deal.
Just a quick question. Is there a new proposed name for the new hospital that takes place at the level?
That's actually a great question. So we do have to register a new name as part of the legal documentation. We are going to use a temporary name because we want to go through a formal branding exercise once the two organizations are merged. So we are going to be using temporarily the thrilling name of the Scarborough and West Durham Health System. That will be we couldn't get any more politically correct than that.
At least we know where it is.
But the intention is, once we've done the legal part of the work, is that we will look for a new brand, and we would be looking to engage the community and staff and everybody in that. We may have some sort of naming competition or something else, but just to get some buzz around it. But we just have to give something for the legal documentation. There has to be a name, so we couldn't think of anything safer than that.
Question here?
Yeah.
Okay, given that Credit Valley and Trillium just merged, will you be looking at that to see how you guys will go forward in this merger as well?
Yeah, so we have already been working and talking to Trillium and Credit Valley, or Trillium Health Partners as they now call themselves. Yeah, we've been learning a lot from them in terms of what they went through. We've been piggybacking on documentation that they had to prepare for their amalgamation, which was 18 months ago, I guess, roughly 18 months, 2 years. So yeah, we've definitely not been reinventing the wheel. We've been piggybacking on what they did, and we've learned some lessons from that, and in fact, frankly, it's helped us to follow the accelerated process that we have been following. So there's been a huge amount of work that has been undertaken in a really short period of time. So it's a credit to all of the leadership teams in both hospitals in terms of, this has been done on the side of the desk. So it's been another job for everybody on top of their day job. So it's been remarkable how everybody has managed to get this stuff done.
Yeah, we do have a question over here.
You mentioned payroll and leveling. What does that mean in terms of pay scale and wages?
I don't have the detailed answer to that, but we have gone through the exercise of comparing on a job-by-job basis what the two organizations look like, and we recognize that there are differences that will have to be addressed to deal with that. I don't have the detail of it on a job-by-job basis. off the top of my head, but that work has been done.
You guys went over here. Just a quick question down the road. If the hospital becomes a really large community hospital, is there a scenario that this might become a teaching hospital, or just wondering?
I do not anticipate that. In any foreseeable term that we would become a fully affiliated teaching hospital. Both hospitals already do conduct a fairly significant amount of teaching, and the Scarborough Hospital does have a formal affiliation with the University of Toronto regarding teaching for, I forget which group, but it's around I think it's residents for community elective. But so I don't think we're going to become we're not going to become another UHN or St. Mike's or London Health Science Centre or what have you. But we will continue to enhance, I think, the teaching opportunities that we have today.
No, I'm just wondering, when we're communicating with staff, so you said as early as May we could be merged if everything goes as planned. So in a transition, in a merger, what length of time do you see before, programs are affected or staff, that kind of thing?
Again, another really good question. So let's assume that we do merge effective May the 1st, and that is an assumption. The first job is going to have to be creating the new management structure, and I would suggest to you that in and of itself is a 2 or 3 month job. We've got to put in place plans for integrating information systems or migrating information systems. So I don't think we will see anything significant around programs before 2015 would be my guess. You've got to get a management team in place. You've got to they've got to get to know what they've got. They've got to figure out where the opportunities are. So I think some of that will start to come into play in the budget cycle for 15, 16. Gosh, that sounds a long way out. So as we get into the budget cycle late 2014, so October, November, December, I think some of that might start to be planned, but implementation will be into 2015. And this is going to, just on that, this will evolve over time. If we look at Trillium, for instance, they continue to evolve. I mean, they're two years ahead of us in terms of their integration, and it's an ongoing process of evolvement and evolution. So, I don't think we'll see big impacts in year one.
Except for back office areas.
Sorry John, you're right, except for back office areas, because we're going to have to get the back office infrastructure put together as quickly as possible so that we've got the building blocks on which to work. So back office will be the first ones that go through integration. Yep.
When you mentioned information systems that we'd have to integrate or migrate,
Yeah.
are you talking about like Ajax, those kind of things?
Yes.
So, okay.
Yes. So we're going to have to make some decisions around. So both organisations use Meditech. So that helps. That's the good news. The bad news is it's Meditech. And they're not quite the same version. So we're going to have to make some decisions in terms of how we move processes around and how we use information and how we get it. And then in terms of just sort of fundamental things like near and dear to everybody's pocketbook, the payroll systems. I mean, how are we going to which payroll system are we going to use? How are we going to migrate that? What are we going to do in terms of the the accounting systems and things like that. So,
Common email.
common email system. You know, there's lots and lots of sort of basic infrastructure stuff that has to be put in place to enable the, make the integration real. Okay then folks, thank you very much indeed. Appreciate it.